Hello, welcome back to this next session on event handling in Java. So today we are going to talk about the AWT and SWINGS. So in the previous session, we saw something about what is event handling in Java. We understood what is the meaning of an event, how an event is generated, so on and so forth. And we also saw that in order to write programs on event handling, you would require something called as a GUI programming methodology, so which is called as a graphical user interface programming. So this GUI programming can be achieved using multiple frameworks, and we saw two very popular frameworks, which is called as the AWT framework and the Swing framework. So now today we shall see what exactly is this AWT framework and a Swing framework, and we shall see the differences between these two. So as you know that AWT it is a framework for the GUI design. Now I have given you the hierarchy of an AWT framework here. Now this AWT framework would basically have a class called as a component class. Now the component class is a super class, it's an abstract class in nature. And all other classes like the container, the button, the label, checkbox, choice and scroll bar, they all basically extend this component or implement this particular component class. And similarly you have two more classes, which are window and panel, which extend and implement the container class, and the window can further be divided into frame and dialog. And you have a separate class called applet also, which basically extends your panel class. Now this is an example of an abstract window toolkit in Java, and this is your hierarchical structure. Now when you compare that with Swings, so what is Swings? Now Swings is the latest framework in Java. Now people generally don't use AWT much here because of certain features which it does not suit the programming style. So Swings is very popularly used. Now Swings also is used to create Windows based application, and remember Swings is actually built on the top of the AWT framework. So when you look at the hierarchical structure of the Swings framework, it is pretty much simple, and it is pretty much the same as when compared to the AWT, just for few minor differences. The first thing is, even the Swing also has got a super class, the object class. It has a component class, and again the classes are further divided as container and the component. Okay, now this component class is actually called as a J component. Okay, now that is one striking difference between AWT and Swings. All the component classes, the component class is basically called as a J component, and all the components of Swings are prefixed with J. So you have a component called JLabel, you have a component called JList, JTable, JCombo, etc. Similarly, there is a container class which in turn has got a window class, a panel class, and you have the frame and the dialog extending the window class. So this is an example of the Swings framework. Now the question is, why do you require Swing? Now why we would have not used AWT itself? So you need to understand the basic differences between Java AWT and Java Swing. The first important difference is AWT components are platform dependent, whereas Java Swing components are platform independent. Now what does this actually mean? Now this means that now whenever I design an GUI application in Java, okay, and that GUI application, if it is designed in AWT, it is depending upon the platform. Now let me give you a simple example. Let's say I am designing a simple login screen using an AWT framework. Now we all know that the login screen consists of the text box for accepting the username and a password field for accepting the password, and it may have two buttons, a OK button and a cancel button. Now this button, the look and feel of this button would basically change from OS to OS. That means the look and feel would change if this particular AWT application is actually run on a Windows machine, and it would actually change even when it is run on a Mac machine. So that means the components of the AWT are platform dependent. But if the same login screen, if it is designed using Swing, then the look and feel would almost remain the same. So that is one difference between the AWT and Swing. And the second important difference is AWT components are heavyweight. That is the reason. What is the meaning of heavyweight is it will occupy or it will consume the resources of the operating system, okay, in order to run an GUI application. But Java Swing components are lightweight, so it doesn't consume much resources of the operating system. And AWT does not support a pluggable look and feel, as it is same as platform dependent, whereas Swing supports pluggable look and feel as it is platform independent. Now you must have also observed that there is one more difference between AWT and Swing, which you would have observed when I was showing you the hierarchical structure of the AWT component. AWT provides less components than Swing. That is, the number of GUI components AWT provides is lesser when compared to Swing, because Swing provides more number of components and more advanced components, like it could be a table, it could be a list, it could be a scroll pane, it could be a color chooser, etc. And AWT does not follow the MVC model. So MVC stands for Model View Controller, where model represents the data and the view represents the presentation and the controller acts as an interface. Now I'll just give you a simple example of what do you mean by MVC. So again, let's forget technicality for a while. Let's consider a car. So we know all what a car is. Okay, now the car basically would have a steering, it would have a gear, it would have some kinds of control which the driver can interact. Now these can be called as a view. Okay, the view is nothing but the user interface. Okay, where the user uses to basically move the car or maneuver the car. Okay, now you also have an engine. The engine basically moves the car. It will have certain functionalities which will move the car. And finally you may have a tank which basically consists of either petrol or diesel. Now this tank would be a model, okay, and the controller would be an engine, and the view would be an interface where the driver is interacting with the car. Now very similar to this, if you take any web application or any application, it basically has a model, view and a controller. A view is nothing but your presentation layer where the user interacts with, and you have a controller which basically contains the business logic, and the model would have the data structures or the database. So the controller basically interacts with the view and the model, and it interacts with the user as well. So this kind of three-tier setup cannot be done using AWT, but it can be achieved using Swing. So this is what you mean by MVC architecture. Okay, now we were talking about containers. So what exactly is a container? So when you want to design any GUI application, it requires a container. So I told you earlier, container is nothing but a placeholder for placing the components. Okay, now there are different types of containers offered by AWT, and there are different types of containers offered by Swings. Now AWT container can be called as panel, frame and window, and you can see that the Swing containers also has got panel, frame and window, but the naming convention is different. So we call it as a J panel, a J frame and a J window. Now let us understand what is this difference between a panel, frame and window, or a J panel, J frame and window. Of course, the container is nothing but a placeholder, but what is the difference between these three different placeholders? So I will show you this with a diagrammatic illustration. Now this is a frame. What you can see here is a frame. Now the next one is a window, and the last one is a panel. So what is a frame? A frame is a container. You can see, you must have seen this containers before when you are working on any GUI application. It has got a title bar. So whenever you design a frame, it will basically have a title bar. It will have a minimize button, a maximum button, a closing button, and you can resize this particular frame. But when you go to a window, the window doesn't have any title bar, or it doesn't have any minimize, maximize or closing button, and you cannot resize it. Similarly, when you go for a panel is nothing but an internal placeholder of a frame. So you have this frame, then under that you have this login panel. So panel is a section of a frame where within that panel you can add more components. So this is the basic difference between a container, a window and a frame. So thank you for watching this particular session. You understood what is the difference between AWT and SWINGS. If you have not subscribed this channel, please do subscribe and hit on the notification icon. I will see you in the next session where we will start writing our first AWT program. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.